Ooh.
Oh.
Hi, thank you very much, Vanessa, for having this chat with me. I've invited Vanessa to have a talk because Vanessa is a parent that I used to teach her kids with. She's got 3 beautiful kids, and she's just going to share her journey and some things that help her in being a parent of special needs kids. Over to you.
Oh, thank you. So I'm Vanessa. I have 3 amazing kids, varying in age. All 3 of my children are autistic. So my eldest son is, I was about to say his name, but no, my eldest son.
Thanks.
He's 12, he'll be 13 in a couple of months.
Wow.
He has a diagnosis, he's autistic, and he also has developmental delay, severe speech and language delays. And he's in year 6 this year. He's in a support unit, an autism support unit. He's going to high school next year, which is really, really exciting. And he's going to be going to a support unit in high school as well. My middle child is 11 years old. She also has a diagnosis. She's also autistic with developmental delay. And she's not nonverbal, but she does have a severe speech and language delay. She does do a lot of echolalia. She can recite you scenes from movies and TV shows that she loves, but she does struggle to use verbal language to communicate. And then my youngest is 8 years old. She's year 2 this year. She is also autistic and has mild developmental delay. She does see a speech therapist. She is verbal. It can be hard to understand her sometimes. So we still do speech therapy, but she can make herself known her needs and wants through her verbal language skills.
And your youngest is now in a mainstream class.
She's in a mainstream class. So she started in a support unit for kindergarten. Towards the end of her kindergarten in term 4, we actually just tried putting her in like a buddy class in a mainstream class. So she used to go like a few times a week. And then in year 1, we started the process of slowly transitioning her into a year 1 class. And now she's in year 2 and she's in a mainstream class for year 2.
Fantastic. And your middle child is in a support unit and has already been accepted into a support high school as well. So she's ready. She knows where she's going. It's perfect.
It's great. So usually with the support units for high school, they do find you a placement while the child is in year 5. So it just makes it easier when it comes to transitioning and
preparing
things like
them.
that. So we've already started with social stories. I've showed her the year on the calendar. So that process just starts to try and make it a smooth and easy transition into high school.
That's fantastic. And Vanessa has some little goodies that she's going to show us that makes her life a lot easier.
Just a little bit easier. You know what? I understand it can be hard. Like my kids are all amazing. They're also unique. They're also different. They have their strengths. But I also understand that it can be hard sometimes, especially when they're younger. And I've just found some things that try and make life a little bit easier for our children, because I think that's the most important thing. I hear like parents a lot of times that are like they're trying to make it easier for themselves or make it easier for a teacher or for the other kids in the class. But you have to understand that you need to make it easier for your child, most importantly, because I think that'll come out in their behaviors and things like that. And like, yeah.
It's a flow-on effect.
It's a flow-on effect. Yeah. It's hard to explain in words, but yeah.
And it makes them more comfortable and confident. And
because it can be exhausting sometimes. I think like when we see a child having a meltdown, they don't want to be having a meltdown. And then that can exhaust them for the rest of the day. So sorry if I'm not explaining it properly. It can be really hard to explain. But yeah, I found it easier when my kids know what they're doing for that day. So I try and keep a routine, but also it's really hard. I think this is going to be with any child, to find your routine, but you also don't want it to be like too regimented.
Yeah.
So we do have like a little calendar so the kids can check like what they're doing every day, what's happening that week.
Do they each have one?
We actually all share one. because we're usually doing the same things. And for therapy, I actually have like the photos of their actual therapists. So when they see their therapist, I've just taken them down just for privacy reasons, because it's the actual therapist photos. They kind of know, oh, we're going to that person, so that's Ellie's therapist.
Yeah.
And then I just have like that's like a picture of our OT.
Mm-hmm.
And then I have which days we're going to school.
Perfect.
And then if they want to request like we're going shopping, like I have like this little picture of our local shopping centre.
Nice.
And things where I can place those on the calendar. I usually write the dates up here, and it's laminated so you can just rub it off as well, just so they can kind of check in and see what they're doing, so they feel a little bit of ease.
Yeah, they're
especially
in control.
when they were younger. Yeah. When they were younger and not as verbal as well, I think it was harder for them, but they could actually see it visually, and I think it just made it a little bit easier. So they were like, okay, I know what's happening today.
Yeah, that's a great idea. What else have you got?
These are my little sensory goodies. I found this at a therapy store, and it's amazing. And it actually plays white noise or sounds of nature. And it's also a light projector. So I find it at nighttime or when things are a bit too much, you can put it in like a blackout tent, or you can kind of just set it up in a bedroom, just to help the child feel a bit more relaxed and get into a better headspace.
Do you use that with each of them, or just whenever you need it?
So the girls have something like that in their bedroom. My eldest son is a bit over it, so he's got like an actual just a star projector, because I think he enjoys the lights more than the sounds. Whereas I think, especially with my middle daughter, to help her regulate her sensory needs, she enjoys, it's got like a waterfall kind of sound, and she enjoys that sound. So that just plays in the background during the day and at night.
Nice.
And then we've also seen these little fun fidget toys. Of course, all kids love those. I found like just a little back massager that you can rub on their backs, that just to help with some sensory needs. If you have a child that loves books but will rip them, I found these board books on Amazon for like $6. So you can still have books and have reading times without the worry that is it going to get accidentally ripped or drawn on or, you know, broken. They're easy to wipe off and they're really sturdy, but it's still like the good fun books that all the kids love. I don't know about you guys, my kids love these books. So do not turn the page, you don't open the books. And then we all love Kmart, I think. I think these are like $5 on Kmart for kinetic sand, magic sand. And then when it comes, and I also found this, which I love, and I wanted to show you guys, was learning about money. And this was a few, like $5 or $10 on Kmart as well. It's got like Australian pretend money, and you can learn how to like count money and put money together and add like 2 items together. So I love that as well. And that were just some fun things I have around the house that I thought I'd share as well.
Now, Vanessa is also an SLSO. She was training I think just after I finished teaching your kids. And so she's now at her children's school. But even before then, she was the best advocate for her children. Like I remember her, like, especially if it was Autism Awareness Week, and she would come with cupcakes for everyone, and just kind of, you would always communicate with the teachers, and you're always sort of touching base. And if there were any issues, it was just that open communication that made sure the children were the forefront of both our minds kind of thing, but also that we knew exactly what was going on at home in case we needed to be aware, but also we could share what was happening, and it was working together that I think makes for a smooth and an open school life. Like, so some of these parents who will be watching this, their kids are about to start into the school system. Yeah, it's exciting and it's nerve-wracking. And what I also would love, if I can, to hear from you is examples of how much they've changed. Like I had your middle child when she was in kindergarten. She's now in year 5. And the difference between then and now is phenomenal. And it's hard, I think, for new parents to be able to see that far in advance and then still not even know. I mean, things happen, things don't happen, but you've always got to be positive, and you've got to be excited to see what the future holds.
You always like have to see your your child's strengths, because every child has strengths and they might not be academic, and that's fine. Not everything about school, not everything about life is about academic work. I think it's really, really important to have like an open communication with your teacher, with your school. Everyone at the school is going to be there for the same reason, and that's to give your child the best education that they can. I think you need to have realistic expectations as well when it comes to learning. And they do change so much. Like, everyone is working towards a common goal. And I think it's really helpful that everyone has the same goal in mind. And that's like including your therapist in your like learning plan for school, asking your therapist, like, what do you think is going to be a good goal for school? And the goal doesn't have to be for school that they learn to read this certain book by the end of term 2. Like, they can be like social or like other maybe emotional regulation and or verbal goals as well. I remember my son, it is so hard to say, not say his name.
I know.
But I remember when my son first started kindergarten, he was jumping off tables. He was jumping off tables, jumping off chairs. Like, my kids went to daycare before they started school. So they were used to kind of that setting with a lot of other children and things like that. But like, he wasn't going to sit down on the floor and listen to a story when it was story time, or understand it's time to sit down now, let's sit down. And now he's in year 6 now, and he's part of his tribe at school. Like, he knows what his expectations are. He knows what's expected from him. He knows what he should expect from other people, and he's like a part of his class. I think this is when you were here, when you had Ellie for kindy. When my daughter first started kindergarten, she was kicking on the door.
She was.
Trying to get out of the class. And I remember like hiding behind a corner crying because I didn't want her to see me, but I wanted to make sure that like she was okay. So I'm a firm believer of leave and cleave. I think if you stick around,
it drags it on
so much. It drags it on. And trust me, when you do leave, they do come down. So I remember like putting my daughter in a kindergarten class, and it sounds awful, but it's just the thing that you have to do at the time. And then someone closing a door and hearing her kick.
And we had to lock it just to make sure, and only just until she calmed herself down. And then it was cuddles, and then often, you know, we would contact you if it didn't settle down, we would contact, but we wanted to avoid her realizing that if she kept going, she would end up leaving. So it's that fine balance of understanding and really getting to know the child to be able to know when we really needed to call. I remember once she was sick and we were like, no, this isn't like her. She hasn't ever slept as much as what she had in class, but she needed it. So we let her. But then we had to call you because it was like, no, we think she's not well. And because she was nonverbal, it's harder for them to explain. And we made the call, and she was off for a couple of days because she wasn't well. So that's knowing the child enough and contacting the parents as well and saying, listen, this is how she's behaving, this is what we're feeling, and then finding from you or the parent what the best course would be. And
my children got like a new placement at a new school as well. When my son was in year 2 and my daughter was in year 1, they started. And we had to go through that same thing again. Like, she didn't want to go into the classroom. And those things happen. And I can tell you, like, a few weeks after and now, my kids walk into school by themselves. They say hello to the teachers at the gate. They walk to their classrooms. They put their bags down. They put their hats away. They go into the cola until the bell goes, and then they walk back to their class when they hear the bell. Like, and they line up.
And they don't even want to acknowledge you when they see you.
They don't acknowledge my existence at all anymore because I'm mum and I'm not fun. So, like, don't get upset if you see this because it does change.
Yeah.
My daughter didn't wear shoes before she started kindergarten because she had sensory issues and she wanted to be barefoot everywhere. And we tried every single type of shoe. And my biggest concern when she started school was like, how is she going to start school when she doesn't like wearing shoes? And it was just a process. of wearing them for a little bit of it every day. And then when she started school, she was wearing shoes. And for maybe a parent of a neurotypical child, that's like, okay, she wore shoes. But for me, she went to daycare and as soon as she'd walk into the daycare, she would flip her shoes off. Because she's comfortable. She's like, I'm comfortable now, so I'm comfortable. That means the shoes come off because that's how I know I'm comfortable. And it was just a big, I remember thinking that I was like, she wore shoes for a whole day, and now she's taking off her shoes when it's time to do gymnastics and putting them back on. And, so things do change. Students do get into routine. Yeah. Even though you think it's not going to happen, I think you'll be surprised about how quickly it does happen, especially when they see other kids that have been at the school for a while doing those things and teachers being persistent as well. You will probably see your child putting their bags down, taking out their lunch boxes, putting out their drink bottles. And this is for mum and dads, and I know this is so hard, but this also means you have to let your child carry their own bag to school. Try not to carry them unless you have to into the school, because they're more independent than you think. And they will surprise you, but you have to give them that opportunity to be independent and give them that opportunity to shine and show you that they can do it, because they are so much more independent, I think, and capable than us as parents that want to nurture them and protect them and shield them from the world. But they're a lot more capable than we give them credit for sometimes, I think. Especially in our kids, and they're starting kindergartens and they're still our little babies that we love and we just want to nurture and mother. But we have to let go a little bit, and that is so hard. And trust me, I have my son starting high school next year and I'm so nervous, but I know he's going to be fine. And I have to let go of my reins a bit and let him go, because he's going to do amazing.
Shine. Yeah.
He will. He's going to shine.
But like you said to me, you've also been in touch with the principal. You've gone for visits. It's not that you just let them go. You still get involved, and we still
get involved, but just you have to
take that step
a little bit. Let go of the reins a tiny bit. But you'll see how quickly and independent they come once they're in a class. And I think especially, I know not all the parents, their kids will be going to support classes. But when they do go to support classes, they've got their system of how to do things, and all the kids are used to the routine and they're all doing it. You'll just be amazed how quickly that your kids just start fitting into the class, fitting into the routine and doing what that's expected of them.
Yeah. And I would love the story with your youngest, because your youngest wasn't diagnosed and your first pediatrician was like, no, So
you can share that. I had to fight, of course, with my eldest two, I think, to get diagnosed, because I remember even with my son, he wasn't talking and he was 2 or 3, and the GP's like, he's our boy, he'll talk when he has to. So I'd already been through the process 2 more times, and I noticed that with my youngest at 18 months, she still wasn't talking, and she wasn't playing with other kids, she wasn't really socializing. Her eye contact was okay, but I just knew that she wasn't neurotypical. So I was taken to the pediatrician, and he knew our family dynamic because he was seeing our other 2 kids. So when I was letting him know of my concerns, I was being told, you're paranoid, it's because your other 2 kids are autistic. She's only 18 months, come back in 3 months. And then I'd go back in 3 months and he'll be like, oh, her eye contact looks okay, come back in another 3 months. And I just knew that was the time that it would start. I had to start advocating for her, and we did just change pediatricians. And then we met an amazing pediatrician, was like, why can't we get things started? And we went through the process of starting to get her diagnosed, and she did get a diagnosis. Her initial diagnosis was global moderate developmental delay, and she's also autistic. She's since done another IQ test, they call them, and her developmental delay has gone to mild. But not that matters, because
she's in a mainstream class anyway.
She's in a mainstream class now, yeah. But also remember that diagnosis, it doesn't mean anything. That diagnosis is your passport to support. Sorry, I'm playing with a fidget while I'm talking. Support unit classes. That passport, it's a passport to get therapies and services So like, I know sometimes it can be hard when you actually have a diagnosis on paper, but that doesn't define who your child is. That is your passport to get access to help get your child the support that they need and they deserve.
Yeah.
So you take it out, here's my passport, we're going to get this, and then it goes back in a drawer and it doesn't matter. So I was happy when I finally got her diagnosis. We were already doing therapies before her diagnosis because I knew that she was autistic. But it just helped, like getting the daycare some extra funding. And then when it came to get her a spot in a support unit in school, of course it helped, or what was necessary to get her a placement in a support unit.
Yeah, exactly. And it never finishes. Like, you'll always be their advocate and you'll fight for them. But I love your comment about, use the passport, pack it away, because it isn't what defines them. And the three of them have got such different characteristics and personalities, and they're all so amazing. And you can't define them from a piece of paper that says this is what you are.
Well, I'll be honest, like their diagnoses were pretty similar. Like autism, speech, and then all three of them, when they were initially diagnosed, were global moderate developmental delay. And you couldn't find three different kids. Like, my son is the responsible, will dob on all his sisters when they're doing things that are wrong. Like, he has a way of doing things and that's how you do it. He's so cute. He's just learned how to make coffee. So he makes me my coffee every morning and he's so proud. And he's like, Mummy, I made your coffee. And I'm like, thank you. He's just, that eldest child. And then my middle daughter is my free spirit wild child, that she is, the only way to define her would be the girliest tomboy that you know, because she has so many tomboy personalities, but she'll do it all holding a pink handbag. And she's very loud. I think even if she was like, excuse me, completely verbal, she'd be the loudest in the room. And then I have my youngest, who's my little artistic one that's always creating and drawing and dancing, and so all the same diagnosis practically, and all three very different children.
Absolutely. One last thing before we go, what has helped you navigate this journey? What's kept you strong? Because when I thought of people that I'd like to ask these questions, to me, you always have demonstrated strength, which doesn't go to say that you haven't had your lows, but what has helped you? What are some tips that you would give to parents going, hey, if you want to survive this and embrace it, this is what helped me?
This might be a long one.
That's good.
Take care of yourself as well. Mentally, I know it can be hard, but if you have a partner, don't forget that parenting is a shared responsibility. It shouldn't all fall on one person. So if you have a partner, they need to get involved as well. We have an amazing family, but not a lot of family that could probably navigate the needs of my children. So if you do need those outside supports, don't be afraid that when you're having your NDIS meeting to say that you need help and you need extra support, because your child is entitled to it, and the more supports, the better. When it comes to things like your pediatrician and your therapist, make sure that you're doing things that you think are going to fit your children with people that you think are going to mesh well. There's nothing wrong with seeing a therapist that's not recommended by your pediatrician, because I know a lot of pediatricians will have therapists that kind of work within their organization, but feel free to go outside, because you have to find people that you're vibing with as well, and that your kids are going to get on with, and that have the same path as you have. Not every therapy is going to work for every child. We kind of have a more laid back approach. We do psychology, we do OT, we do speech therapy, we do everything quite regularly. And then with therapists that over the years, we've just decided that they fit our family. And then we've just seen them forever. And then if anyone leaves or retires, we just try and find new ones.
Yeah.
Also, sometimes I hear people say if they're getting like comments from friends about their children and they're not your friends, make sure you're in positive relationships. Once your kids start school, trust me, there's lots of mums to go and get coffee with and hang out with. I'm still in touch with some parents that I first met when our kids started kindergarten and my kids aren't at school anymore, find new friends, because sometimes I hear like people say, oh, they weren't that nice to my child. Then your child doesn't need that negativity kind of around. It's not good for you. It's not good for them as well. So always advocate for your child. And that's another thing, just always advocate. And advocating doesn't have to be that you're going in and screaming and demanding things, but there's nothing wrong with making your expectations known, making your child's goals known, and working towards the best for them. And that's with teachers, with therapists, with NDIS. You know, as a parent, I think, what your child needs, and there's nothing wrong with asking for those things and fighting for those things, especially when it comes to inclusion, and what you think is right for your child. What else to be strong? There's always
your Facebook. Yes.
Yeah, there's an amazing, I'm just going to open it on my screen because I always get it wrong. There's an amazing podcast, and it's called Two Peas in a Podcast, and it's two with TOO and then peas, like peas in a pod. And it's just two mums who have, they've actually got multiples with special needs, and they have books. They've got a Facebook page. They have a weekly podcast, which I binge and listen to episodes that I've always heard 100 times. And it's just nice to know that other people are going through what you're going through as well. Like, I try and be strong, but being strong doesn't mean that you can't have a cry once in a while as well. And I think everyone's seen me cry once that I'm close with, because like I'm an emotional person as well. And it, you know, you got to get that out as well.
Yeah.
I think it's always important to look for the best in your child. Make sure that you're not putting too much pressure on them to doing things that they're just not able to do. So before, when I mentioned like have realistic expectations, if your child is struggling to read their name at home, don't think that they're going to be reading a novel at school. And that because they're reading a novel that maybe another child their age is reading, that doesn't mean anything. Like, you're going to watch your child progress every single year. And even if it's like a tiny step, that is still a tiny step forward. And then if they do go back a little bit, that's okay too.
Yeah.
Like, that's just your child. And every child, whether that child has a disability, whether that child is neurotypical, every child is different and learn at different paces, and they all have different strengths and different weaknesses, and that's just how it is.
Yeah.
And yeah, I don't know what else I can mention unless you can remind me of anything. Because
no, I think we've kind of covered all of it. I think there've been some great messages that hopefully parents who are new to this journey will be able to go, okay, cool, like it's all right. And I really like that you're still in touch with, I mean, parents and teachers from their old school, but also you build new connections. And you've got to have like-minded people, and you've got to have positive people, because it's not the easiest journey. It's not one anyone chose, but you can do it and you can enjoy it with the right people around you. And like you said with NDIS, you've got to fight, ask for help, because it's there for them.
This is with NDIS, like if you get a result that you don't like, you can ring up and ask for a review. And like, it does take time, but it's just a phone call and then they'll call you back. Like, it's a couple of phone calls. But don't think because, and this is with anything, don't think just because you've gotten a result, that's the end all.
Yeah.
Like, you can always ask for reviews and advocate more. And one more thing, like, don't feel pressure to do things that you don't want to do or that's not going to be beneficial for your child. So if a certain doctor is going to push for something that's your child
doesn't sit well,
doesn't sit well, you don't have to do it. If a family member is pushing you to bring your child to a function, and you know that it's going to be too noisy and they're going to spend the whole function with their hands on their ears under a table, you're not obligated to take them. You do things at your own speed for your family that's going to be good for your family.
Yeah.
Because like, I think we just have to prioritize ourselves, our family units, and just do what's good for us and good for them.
Absolutely. I think you've covered all of it. Nice work, Vanessa. Thank you very much.
If anyone has any questions, feel free to like shoot them
to me.
And you can email me anytime. I'm happy to answer any questions. Sorry if I got nervous. It's hard to talk, I think.
It is. I was getting emotional listening because I know some of the stories and I know the history, but there's still things I didn't know. And I'm like, oh, thank God they've got you. And that's, yeah, every parent is doing the best they can, but you look after your child, but you also have to look after yourself as well. Anyway.
Self-care days.
Yes. Thank you so much for that. And I'll be in touch with you soon anyway. Bye.
Perfect. Thanks.